Thank you. So this is about some lessons that I've learned or the market has learned from 2 years of doing social. In 2012, I went to the market manager and I said, is anybody doing social media marketing for you guys? He said, no. And I said, well, I'd like to volunteer some stuff. I saw an opportunity there. I'd been writing about food in the region for about 10 years, about 10 years at the time. And more and more, my writing tended to go back to why do I actually like this food? It's the fresher food, it's the closer to home food that I was interested in, so I wanted to work with the market. At that time, almost all of the marketing was done by the manager, who was, how many managers in the room here? So do you have time to take on more marketing stuff? Yeah. You do? Good. Well, most of the people that I talk to are already busy. They know that they want to get on social. They have no idea what to do. Or once they get on there, they feel really overwhelmed. And so Vicky was very enthusiastic that I would want to volunteer and help do some things. And I really was very basic. But what was happening in 2012 was pretty minimal. There was an occasional, and when I say, I don't like to just talk about social media. There's a range, like a range of media. They're all social to some extent, depending on how you use them. All of your content in traditional media can be repurposed for using your own networks. So I try and talk about or how we can leverage that stuff or create stuff for multi-purposes. So at this point, in 2012, there were occasional press releases and there were occasional ads in the paper. The website was quite old, and it was in the hands of a board volunteer to update. So I don't know how many of you are relying on your board to do lots of your stuff, but those are busy people and things don't move very fast. On the other hand, there are things that we could do fast, and we did them. There was no email list. How many people here have a newsletter with a mail list? Okay. To me, this is like really, really important. This is probably the number one thing to work on, but we didn't figure that out till later on. But along the way, we asked some questions which really helped prime our pump. We had 1,100 Facebook fans, which was pretty nice because it had grown very relatively passively, but people, as I imagine you've experienced, people want to know more. They want to be engaged with the market. The market's an attractive place to like. It's easy to like the Facebook or like the market on the Facebook. And there was a new Twitter account with 0 followers. Where are we in 2015? Now the most exciting number is that now we have 1,100 Twitter followers, but we're not really doing anything. So somebody asked about how to, I can't remember who it was, asked about how to do something with Twitter. Well, I think there's lots that could be done with Twitter, but it's a different animal than Facebook, and it needs some different kind of thinking about it. Most of our energy has been put into Facebook and local print stuff. Nevertheless, with a very passive, like super passive, in fact, some bad practices on Twitter, like auto-posting from Facebook. Who here auto-posts from Facebook to Twitter? Please don't. Or if you do, be really mindful that you're actually saying something in about 100 characters that makes sense, and make sure that you're paying attention on Twitter when people respond to you. Often what happens with auto-posts is you get this wonderful Facebook post. It's truncated, so on Twitter it looks like blah, 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 and then it sort of falls off the edge of the table, and you don't know what it's about, and nobody responds when you ask a question or retweet it or something like that. So unless you're really paying attention to like how many characters you're putting on there and whether people are responding to it, I encourage people not to auto-post. We have 18 plus video interviews / profiles. Well, actually we have more than that on YouTube. So we've built a little bit of a video presence. We now have, and those are the basis of a monthly local newspaper profile. Who here is profiling markets that were writing a regular column in the local paper? 1, 2. Okay. I don't know what your demographics are in your community, for us to reach my mother-in-law's demographic. Anything with my name in the paper, she notices. So that's my litmus test. If I put something in the paper, next time I see her, she'll say, "Oh, I saw the article." So I'm assuming that a lot of people who are grayer than me, if that's possible, are still really relying on local paper. People who have more hair than me and aren't as gray, they're not virtually paying no attention at all. So our attention is split between Facebook and paper. We also have monthly mini food fests, which are, as I'll talk about later, kind of an underdeveloped but really good marketing tool. And in the fall of 2014, we relaunched our website. We now have an email newsletter. It comes out infrequently. It's just got launched, I think maybe this summer. There haven't been a lot of issues of it yet, but people actually want to sign up for it. So we have 500 plus. And we're now adding about 70 to 90 new subscribers monthly. I think that's crazy. I mean, I don't want more stuff in my email inbox, but people want local food news. Our Facebook fans went from 1,100 to almost 3,300, and we now have a monthly survey, and we get between 70, up to even 100 responses a month without a whole lot of effort. So that's probably the most exciting thing for me. What works? We were talking about this earlier. Like we do lots of little experiments, but the big thing is provide content, stories about your people, stories about your product. Have a conversation, whatever platform you're on. Pay attention to when people are sharing. Go to the share. Say thanks for sharing. If they retweet, say thanks for the retweet, and then give them an invitation to, take part in whatever you got going on, a promotion or a survey or whatever. And it's the same with likes and comments on the Facebook page. Just be there. I'm actually been experimenting right now because of some things about how Facebook does things. I haven't been liking anything. I've just been actually leaving comments when I like something. It's a little bit more work, but it actually shows more presence. And to go back to what Ron was saying, he was talking about a friend of his who was showing him an Instagram strategy, which was basically doing a lot of likes. And you definitely get a lot of attention that way. And it depends on what platform you're using, but I would, if you really want to engage people, and part of what I see my job is to give people some reason to have a relationship with the market. So they're not just going, okay, farmers markets are cool, I like the pictures, I like the idea, but I'm basically an armchair local food fan. What I want to do is be real with them and hope that they'll be real and maybe actually show up and buy some food. I mean, heaven forbid that all 3,000 people would actually show up at the market one day and want Arzina's scapes when they're not there or your kale when they're not there. But, that would be a blessing if we had that kind of problem. So, content, conversation, and consistency, being there regularly, like just whatever it is. Can't remember the example we were talking about, but it was, even when things don't always work. Oh, I know, it was a comment, I can't remember your name, but looking for that viral thing. I would encourage you not to look for that viral thing, but look for the things that are incrementally building and that are working, and then kind of nudge things in that direction. But just, make sure you're posting on your pages 2 or 3 times a week at a minimum, giving people like some reason to be there. How many of you are concerned about are concerned about the new Facebook or not so new logarithms, which mean that people aren't seeing your page information? 3, that's all? 4, 5. Everybody else is happy with it?
It's a big deal. I've seen a big difference.
Yeah.
A lot more people used to see my posts, then that came on, and all of a sudden the numbers cut by more than a third.
Right. So that's something that I want to talk about later, because there's a big concern. My thing is, I treat Facebook, but the pages that I manage, like a magazine. If somebody's given me an opportunity to have a platform, I create a magazine. Now, rather than paying for ads in the local paper or somewhere else, I pay for ads on Facebook, and I find you can do some really great targeted stuff. So I'm not concerned about people not seeing it. Again, it comes down to, if I'm providing quality stuff, or if we are, the market, other people just tend to share that stuff. So it goes back to having quality content, being consistent, and knowing that there's a bunch of loyal people out there who will actually move your content around, and then reaching the ones who you want to reach with ads. Now the question of, does it work? This is a little. Okay, I'm going to stop that because that's Karen Grover. I did a video, a little profile of her in March last year when she started showing up with these amazing eggplants for like $2 each. They were better than they were healthier, better looking, cheaper than what we were getting in the stores from Mexico and California. So I did a little. She was, just the timing was good. I did a profile of her, and all of a sudden, the next time I saw her, she was like telling me it was crazy the response she was getting. She actually had somebody from New York contact her. Now, as far as I know, she's the only market vendor who's had somebody from out of the country contact them. I mean, I've done videos with you. Has anybody contacted you? No, we'll have to work on that one. Anyway, Karen was great, and so I said, well, do you want to do a little testimonial with me? And so that's what she did. And basically, she said it was great to get this contact, but also the bottom line was that her sales were up. So it had a direct impact on her sales, and for me, that's like a beautiful thing. Again, does it work? So in 2011, we have an estimate of how much money the market brought in. So the market has a table fee, which is generally it's a percentage. So we extrapolated from that, and we estimated that there was like $822,000 came in to the market over 12 months in 2011. In 2014, that was up to $1,398,000. So that was a 70% jump in 3 years. Pardon? We've got plus or minus 80 members, and that's year-round. So it was year-round in 2011. It was year-round in 2014.
And how did you estimate that again?
From using table fees as the basis, because it's a percentage of. There is a minimum. It's not exact because there's a minimum that some vendors, about 20% of the vendors pay, which is that doesn't fall into that. So. For the market, though, they saw a 70% increase in their table fees. I'd been beavering away on stuff. It was only when I started to do this little presentation that I looked at the numbers, and I called Vicki up and I said, "Is this right?" And she said, "Yeah, it's right." And I said, why haven't we had a party? So then we started talking about, well, why is this? And she said, well, bottom line, it's the marketing we're doing. That was her perception. The marketing we're doing is driving this. But there are some other factors. 2011, she thought she remembered was a wet summer, so that will have an impact on those sales. The other factor was that we had Arzina move in. When did you move into our community?
I didn't do that.
When did you move in?
2011.
Okay, so Arzina has had a huge impact in terms of raising the profile of local food in our community. So you weren't marketing at the market. Well, you actually were. You were doing what other vendors should be doing, but you changed or helped shift things. Just like Sandra Hamilton is also shifting things now. So the conversation about local food has been elevated, and we all benefit from that. Nevertheless, it was nice to hear from Vicki that she thought it was actually some of the marketing was a big part of this. The more, there has been research that we haven't done anything locally, I don't think, about what happens when people spend on local food, but the US FDA has a nice little infographic and stuff about the multiplier effect. And so when you can demonstrate that stuff, then people have additional reasons to spend, to buy locally. But the reality is that the marketing still is in the hands of the market manager and either a volunteer or a contractor or something, because while farmers and vendors are really good at growing food, they're not necessarily good at growing customers. And part of that is typical of small businesses. They are too busy in the business to work on the business. So that's where one of the reasons I wanted to work with, and it's across the board with small businesses. It's easier for me to work with associations like the Farmers Market or the Chamber of Commerce or organizations like that rather than it is small businesses, because most of the people doing the work would rather have their hands in the ground than on a keyboard or touch screen. Arzina is a rare example of someone you're doing both. Yeah, but so a lot of farmers and a lot of small business people don't want to do marketing. They're basically too busy doing their work. And also there's this belief that good products will sell. I mean, that good product in the corner always sells for me. Like that's a destination for me. Willow Vicks cinnamon buns. Quince, not so much. And I love what people do with it, but you have to, look at that. It's $1 a pound. That's crazy. Good products, well, the belief is, and again, it's across the board with small businesses. The idea is if you do good service and you provide good products, people will buy it. Yeah, they will, but that's a really passive way of selling. It's as if you said, well, the field is growing stuff, so I'm not going to fertilize it. I don't really like the analogy of marketing and manure, but it kind of works. We have to spread the manure around so that people pay attention and their interest in what we're doing grows. And the results are, they're good. Because we're doing surveys, we also found out a lot of things about, what's working and what's not working. So most people get their market information from Facebook and the newspaper, again, depending on their age. Most people are concerned about price, but when you ask them follow-up, they see the value of local food. So it's expensive. I have this one question. I say, is organic local expensive? Yes or no? And they say yes. And then I ask them why. And then there's little mini essays after that, kind of justifying. Yeah, it's expensive, but I buy it because. And then they list all the reasons why they do that. We also have interesting stuff about who's buying. So there's lots of, our target market right now are young families, particularly young women who have kids. So these are not people who have a lot of money in lots of cases, because we also ask them online for income. And their incomes aren't huge, but they are making choices to spend money on healthy food. So again, the price thing is big for people, but it's not as much big of a barrier, at least for the people who are already on board. It's the next bunch of people that we need to reach. We also know that people like to be asked questions and regularly. And while the average age of the average age is probably closer to 60 rather than 50s, we've got a strong and growing component of young family people. And I don't know about you guys, but parking and accessibility are always big issues. Now, social marketing, often people associate with young people. I love this picture. It's if you know Mandolin, it's typical kind of Mandolin. She's a great subject for social marketing. She's not a good practitioner. So she grew up with it, and face to face, she's great. But she'd rather not be doing the Facebook, Twitter thing. On the other hand, Joe, who is a few years older than me, is really active on Facebook and does a really good job. And I love it. I mean, we post stuff on the market page. Pretty soon you'll see, Joe shared it. If it has to do with local food, she shares it, she comments, she makes it happen. So the perceptions about who's comfortable with the stuff or who's going to be using it, don't buy into that stuff. You'll find your evangelists all over the place in the market, and the people you expect. I wish Mandolin was more into that, because she's a great presence on video and on camera, but it's just not her thing. So others have to do it for her. So she's been great in other stuff that I've done. So the first lesson for me was just, if the farmers aren't going to do it, and if I can't really tell who's going to do it, I have to just do it myself. So that's what I'm going to get you guys to do right now. A little exercise, because the market is not just about food. Although we want people to buy food, historically we end up at markets for the people. A bunch of us go just to buy food, but most of us go because we actually like being social. We like hearing stories. We like having a laugh. We like having conversation. So when you represent the market, think about those things. Pictures of food are good. Pictures of people are even better. Or there's got to be a balance around that stuff. So what I want you to do is think about, in this next exercise, smiles, looking at the camera, people in pairs or groups. Now the first one we're going to do is just turn to your neighbor, preferably somebody you don't know, but if it's somebody you know, that's fine too. Whip out your smartphone. Who doesn't have a smartphone here? You don't have a smartphone? Okay. So to me, this is your number one marketing tool. So if you don't have one, then make yourself the subject of somebody else's picture. So turn to your neighbor, please. Take a picture of them. Take a picture of each other. Make it playful, Maybe it's a picture of you guys taking a picture of each other. The next part of the exercise is to make sure you include the names of the people who are in the picture and their market. And if their market, like if you're on Instagram or Twitter, like their handle, if like for me it would be at Hans Peter Meyer, so you'd want to put that in there. If you're taking a photograph of Arzina, it would be either at Arzina or at Amara Farm or at Comox or at CV Farmers Market. Some way that people can find it or notice that they've been posted about. And make sure you include the event tag. Who knows the event tag here? One. But it's important to include the tag. It's important to, you know why it's important to include the tag?
Tell us about hashtags. I don't quite understand hashtags.
Okay. Well, depending on what this is a little sidebar here. Tags are a way of searching and finding information. So if you were looking for people talking about this conference and you had no idea who was here, if you were on Twitter, the easy thing to do would be just to search for that tag, and you would find every reference, well, more or less every reference to that. And the same on Instagram. Facebook is not so friendly, but it will find all of your friends who were talking about this. Now the next part of that, the value of that, is that then you will discover and enlarge your network. So all of a sudden you will find, oh, there's so-and-so, there's so-and-so who I met at the conference who I haven't met yet, but they're part of this discussion about local food. And the more we connect about that stuff and the more we amplify what we're talking about in terms of local food, the more the rest of our social network knows about it. So what I'd like you to do as a takeaway, when you go back to your community and your market, go through this exercise and encourage your neighbors to do this exercise. Okay, so there's a bunch of questions about Twitter. And we should at some point do a whole thing on Twitter. Your Twitter profile, if it's for your market, it should have on your profile where you want people to go. If it's your Facebook page, then that'll be the URL. If it's your website, then that's the URL. If it's your email sign-up form, that's the URL. On Twitter, they're just going to go to your Twitter profile, unless you give more information when you tweet. But when they arrive on your profile, that's where you have your, like the link to your landing page, whatever that is. Okay, so the biggest change in what's happened at the market that I can see, and I ask Arzina to contribute to this, is that we've got more vendors using the tools. It's haphazard, but more of them are posting. We've got me doing stuff. We've got more customers doing stuff. Now, customer engagement is a big thing for us to work on. We haven't done a lot around that. It's where and I'll talk a bit about the mini food fests as an opportunity to do that kind of stuff. And we also have the manager and staff doing that kind of stuff. One of my favorite examples of a vendor getting in on this is Alder Lane Bakery. So I think it's every Saturday morning they post a word on their page. And if you go to their table and you give them the word, they give you a little baked treat, like a little tiny treat, right? So they're giving something away, but they're also getting people paying attention to their Facebook page. And they're getting people walking up to their booth saying, hi, word, getting their free thing, and then they're already there, so why not buy some bread or a cinnamon bun or some Mennonite sausage or whatever else they've got selling there. So they're actually doing really well. In fact, they're one of the most successful vendors at the market. I mean, I can't attribute that to this little Facebook thing, but it's a cool little thing they're doing. They're playing that really well. Does this look familiar, Arzina?
Yes.
So this is a clever use of analog and digital. So Arzina had, I don't know if you still have this, but she had a little whiteboard, and it just, if you go to Facebook, you search for Amara Farm. If you go to Twitter, search for Amara Farm. Simple. I don't know, how many people did you pick up like that? 300? But you let people know that you were present there. So, there's a bunch of different ways of doing this stuff. What I liked about this is that it's analog. It's not like some well-crafted, or maybe it was, I don't know.
My kids did that.
Right. So, it looks really friendly. It's kind of funky. It's a low stress, low digital kind of level way of.
It's authentic.
It's authentic.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So what's working? I mean, all of us are benefiting from a general interest in healthier food, organic food, local food. People at a level, like local food is important to the general population. So we're all rising on that tide. Basically, farmers markets you've arrived. You're sexy. So there should be lots of opportunities to grow and expand your markets. You're not fighting with people about, the price thing is an issue for lots of people, but you've got lots of advocates who can speak to that, who aren't necessarily your manager or your board people. You've got people in the community we're finding that, who have really good arguments with themselves about why, okay, price is an issue, and we can't really afford it in our household, but we can afford it because X, Y, and Z. So besides, the general tide rising, Facebook is a really good way for us to connect with our people locally. Again, Twitter is a harder one because we don't have a huge Twitter usage in our region. If you're in an urban area, you potentially have more penetration and more coverage and more engagement. But for the Comox Valley, for example, Facebook is huge. A lot of people are using it. And every time you post that, it's like a different jar of jam. Because these are just things that I would do. So so I asked, and you'll see this later on in the slides, I asked a question okay, how much money would be reinvested in our community if every household just spent $10 more a week? And a lot of people couldn't do the math. Some people did. But it was phenomenal, that number. So that's another little hook. But what you're talking about, so if every household bought a jar of jam every month, or I don't know, every week, whatever, that would have this huge impact on your local community. However you get them on there, onto your page, is a good thing. Again, smiling people, groups of people, people with vegetables, people with flowers, whatever people are selling at the market, big squash pictures are like great. One of my favorite pictures, and it comes on at the end, is of our Zena's daughter with some really, like 2 big patty pans. I don't know, does anybody eat patty pans that big? But visually it was like, it's a great picture. Videos. Video on Facebook, and actually Facebook is upping this. For a long time, the recipe for success on Facebook was photographs. They've kind of changed things, so photographs are not the recipe for success. I still think you need to put them out there because people want to see that stuff. But videos are huge. So little clips, yeah?
I'm sorry, can you post, can you boost your post with a video?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So you can boost any, basically create an ad out of any of your content. If you have a lot of words on it, they will not let you advertise. So creating like a flyer or a poster kind of thing is risky. I still do it. It still gets play. They shut it down. Doesn't get the kind of play I want it to, but it does get exposure. So that's ads. Ads are great. What else is working? Vendors using Facebook. The newsletter, is it working? It's working insofar as people want that information. It's still too early to know whether we actually have, whether it's conversions, whether people are. Come on, baby.
Question.
Yeah.
What platform do you prefer for your newsletter and survey?
Okay, for the newsletter, that's the market manager is doing that, and I don't know what she's doing with that. With the surveys, I started with the Google product, which is great, all-purpose kind of thing. I've been playing with Typeform.com, which is a much prettier and actually has higher use rates.
How do those compare to the SurveyMonkey offering?
SurveyMonkey would be like the Google version of stuff, right? I mean, it's great. It's good stuff, Try Typeform. You can run a certain number of the branded, but you can still do free stuff, and they're actually quite pretty. So I like them.
And you said you can add branding to those Typeform?
Well, you can if you pay money.
Yeah,
I'm saying they're branded with the Typeform brand, so for the free one, right? So what David does is admirable. It's labor intensive. So another sidebar here. A lot of what people do, like the big marketing stuff, is volume driven, or that's how I see it. It's volume driven work. That's not how I approach this stuff. I think if we're actually, to go back to your word, authentic about what we're doing, and we actually believe in what we're doing here, then part of what works is actually having, knowing who those people are, trying to find a way of having a conversation, even if it's only, and this is what I do. So the new people come on, and it's not, I don't do it all the time, but regularly I'll do a little welcome message. So it's a canned message. Welcome to the farmer's market. Look forward to your comments. Blah 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 blah. Something else, and then every month it's always an invitation to take the survey. So I'm basically asking them to give us feedback. Welcome. Give us some feedback. Tell us what your experience is. Yeah, it takes some time, but it's not a lot of time. But so to go back from advertising as opposed to marketing, or actually doing social marketing as opposed to bulk marketing, I think how I approach this stuff is I actually want to have a conversation with you. And I mean, it gets really overwhelming at times. There's so many people. I walk into my community, and I'm a pretty visible person in our community, and I do lots of stuff that's out there. So I'm constantly having people come to me and say, and I'm like, and I have to say, I'm sorry, where did we meet? How did we, well, we didn't meet, I follow you on Facebook. Oh, okay. But that's part of, so there are some personalities who like this stuff, and we have a thick enough skin, and we have enough dark holes to cave into so nobody can contact us so we can recharge. For other people, it's just not their thing, my sweetheart, it's she's not so on that scale at all. In fact, she finds it really weird when people can walk up to her and say, "Oh, I saw your picture on Instagram," you know, and it's like she finds it creepy, right? So I have to be really careful about that. But for me, it's just part of that thing. So in terms of your organization, it's finding the people in your organization. It may not be your manager. It may not be any of the board people, although it's lovely when it is the board people, who actually like this stuff, who like being out there. And then hopefully you've got somebody who likes data, though, as much as, I can't remember. Julie loves it because, that's really useful stuff, your data. What I like besides the data are the open-ended questions, because am I on surveys here? Yeah. So surveys tell us a lot. So the Facebook liking a Facebook page gives you a ton of information, and if you've got the kind of time that David has and energy, then you actually get to know those people and you can respond to them. But when you see them at the market, you say, "Hi, it's great to see you. I know you like squash. There's a squash for sale," or something like that, right? That makes people feel like there's more to the market than just pushing product, although generally the markets don't have that problem. Yes? So the other thing that I love about the surveys is it gives us tons of content ideas. If we had more resources, we would be churning out a blog post, and if we had a newspaper that played along, we'd be churning out a newspaper article every week based on what's coming out of what people's comments are. And those are driven by our questions, so I'm going to go in a second. The other thing it does is engagement. People know that we're asking questions. They think that we actually care. When we respond, then we're actually showing we care. So if we're asking questions and we don't ever do anything with it, then we don't care, and they should defriend us and all that kind of stuff.
Do you ask the same questions every month?
Some of them are the same, so we can track it over the course of like a year or 2 years or something. Some of them change every month. So I'll get into that in a second. The other thing I love about surveys is email capture. So it's a voluntary thing. But we have a little giveaway. We give away every month this huge amount of 20 market bucks. So for the cost of 20 market bucks and what it cost me to run this survey, the market gets a bunch of great information. And we say, we ask them, do you want to be on the newsletter? Yes, no. Most people, like across the board, 70 to 80% people say yes. And then we ask them at the end, if you want to be in on the draw, we need your email address. And we only use that for the newsletter if they've said yes. So here's one, I don't know if you can see that. It's a lovely cantaloupe that I think Steve Horrell grew. Every month we ask, what are 2 things the market can do better? So that's one of the questions we ask every month. What can we do better? So here it was advertise more on available products and share more background on local farms and families involved. So we're doing more of the background. We're doing that. The advertising on available products, to go back to people who've tried to do some of this stuff, I'll talk a bit about my experiment in that. It's hard. In December, for example, we asked, what can the market do to make Christmas shopping easier? Now, special event or special shopping days, to go back to your talking, we should be behaving more like a retail outlet. This is part of that. Treat the market should be pushing local food gifts November, December. People like local food. So give a bunch of jam away. This year, my kids, all of whom are adults, some of whom are going to school, don't have a lot of money, they each got a little pot of honey, the girls got some salves and stuff like that. The boys got soap. And each of them got a big spaghetti squash. All right, so they got this big, huge thing, which was relatively cheap. But I spent a ton of money, or relatively speaking, on almost all of my Christmas shopping at the market. Father's and Mother's Day. There's a vendor at our market who makes barbecue sauces. Father's Day is the perfect time to give barbecue sauces. We should be Mother's Day, and there's all kinds of stuff that moms, are gardeners. yeah, there's all kinds. Like, think like a retail outlet. Think Easter. Eggs. We should be selling like tons of. I don't know how we do that, but what are the seasonal things? How do we cater to that? We're not going to beat Superstore on pumpkins at Halloween, but they don't provide those beautiful French pumpkins. I mean, in January, so we have these seasonal month things, like a little festival. So January, because there's not a whole lot growing, unless you're like Arzina and you've got like this perpetual supply of like chickweed and stuff like that. In January, it was about meat. So we asked a question about local meat. We say, are you buying local meat? And then why or why not? And then, why? One person said, I can talk to the farmer and see how the animal was grown and if there's antibiotics used. We could do, if we had time and money, or a volunteer who wants to develop a practice in food journalism, we could be writing a story about that. It's a great story. A great story for newspaper, a great story for the blog, a great story for a Facebook post. We also ask questions like, they're repeating some of the stuff that the BC Farmers Association of Farmers Markets has done, similar kinds of stuff, but we wanted to get more local data. So when buying groceries, which is the most important factor, local is a huge one. So we asked them, what's the most important? Local, then organic, then price. What's the second most important? Price. And then, price and local are tied. So organic's in the mix, price is significant, and we have to always be noticing that. So then I ask, how much of your weekly grocery budget do you spend at the market? Well, over half of the people spend less than 10% of their. So to me, that's like, okay, that's a big chunk of people that we can grow in. How do we grow that? Right? How do we get them to buy the extra jar of jam, or the bunch of kale, or the chickweed, which they can't buy anywhere else? And then there's this question here. There are an estimated 16,000 households. If every one of them spent $10 more a week for a whole year, how much money would that pump back into our economy? $8 million plus from spending $10 more a week.
Are you counting just that actual $10, or are you counting that $10 is now going to a local food producer who is going to buy something else locally, and then because I'm just community figured out, like, with us doing that, it's something like it gets spent 5 or 6 times.
The multiplier effect is huge, and I don't have that number here. So all I'm saying is just this is just like pure and simple. Yeah. If everybody in this room spent $10 more, there'd be that much more money going into the system. And then what impact does that have? Well, that's huge. And our economic development bodies, or the people, our chambers of commerce, they're the ones who I would say figure that out. Like, what's actually happening here, and how do we make this happen?
Those numbers exist. The government has multiplier effects for different industries, and I can't pull up where it is, but somewhere in the government, those numbers exist.
We can Google it.
Yeah, and they change too. Like those things will change, but that's part of the story that as markets that I think we have to tell. It's like Sandra's doing it at a different level, and that's great what she's doing. But at a more grassroots level, this is our job: is to show people that not only the food is healthier, it feels good to shop there, it's fresher, it tastes better. Did you know that you're actually helping to create jobs in your community? Did you know that you spending a little bit more money is actually you are an economic development agency? Your household plays an important role. And it isn't enough just to kind of shovel off some taxpayer dollars to a economic development body to have them do whatever it is they do. This is like grassroots stuff. This is our household's going to make a difference. Anyway, that's my little, one of my hobby horses is that. Then what I love about surveys too is we also find out things like this. How did you hear about the market? do you know whether the market has? So this was before I did Typeform stuff. This was from a Google survey, and at that time, so this has kind of set some baselines for us. I did surveys for about a year, and the results were that how did people hear about it? 13% from Facebook, 71% from word of mouth, the other probably word of mouth. Okay, so a newspaper ad and story in the paper, those got about 18%, but the biggest one was word of mouth. So it's like the farmers or the small business people. That's what, yep, our product will sell itself because people will just tell our story. That's great, but we can do better than that. The other question was, do you know whether the market has these things? And about a third of the people knew that there was a Facebook page, that there was a website, and that there were newspaper stories. So those were all, Pinterest and Twitter were like zip. A bunch of people, 16%, didn't know about any of this stuff. But some people did know about this. So our challenge was, okay, we need to, increase those numbers. So that's going to be part of the survey work for the next year, is like, how have we done?
How again were you putting out the survey?
At this survey here was, there was online stuff, but it was a lot of just asking people at the market. So the thing about doing surveys inside Facebook is, of course they're on Facebook, right? The number for, do we know you have a Facebook page? It's going to be like 90-something%, because that's how they found out about it. So this was a lot of face-to-face stuff and a lot of just generic internet stuff without being Facebook-based. And so we'll have to do that again to compare those numbers. Let's talk a bit about photographs. Again, people in pairs, looking at the camera. When you have people taking photographs, if you hire somebody or if you ask somebody to do that, like a volunteer, this is the hardest thing for people, is to walk up to somebody they don't know and say, can you look at me in the face and have a smile and be like excited? Some people have that skill, and that's why they go on to become photojournalists or social marketers. Most people don't have that. You get lots of pictures of the back of their heads, back of people's heads. Basically, those are useless, right? Because they don't. What you want is to show engagement. If you're going to have people lined up or something like that, then the person they're lined up in front of has to be like the big theme, right? They have to be like holding the bread or the squash or something, and like, yeah. Otherwise, you're just going to get a bunch of the back of people's heads, and that's a really good question. I always tell people, this is going to go on social media. It's going to be seen by lots of people. Are you okay with that? Some people say no, and then I don't take the picture. Or I'll take the picture and send them an email, and I will never use it. I almost never take pictures of children. Okay, it's just too risky, and especially as a man, taking pictures of kids. Yeah. So, and I also just think generally, stay away from kids unless their mom or dad is holding them or something like that. So I don't have a formal agreement with people. I just say, and again, it's my community. People will know me. They will find me. Whatever I say. This is going to go out on social media. It's going to go on Facebook and blah, blah, blah. Are you okay with this? Okay. So whenever you have people, because people do like to take photographs at markets, if you have a chance, ask them for copies. Make it easy for them to give you the copies, or if they're posting online, to tag you or something like that. But if they can, because you don't really want to be sent a bunch of images that you have to mess with. But if they can tag you, whether they're posting to Flickr or Instagram or Facebook, whatever, they can tag you or tag the market. They're helping do your job. You're getting something out of it then, and I agree with you. You make sure they ask permission, but also make sure you're getting something out of it, because basically you're providing them with something. The other thing is, when professionals are in your midst doing that kind of stuff, they may be using some of that stuff for professional purposes. So think about, what's the quid pro quo here? If you're going to make some money off of this, how do we get some of that? Maybe not the money, but maybe, if it's a great photograph, we get to use it for an advertisement or something like that. Don Genova has this lovely book that he published last year. Was it last year? Food Artisans of Vancouver Island. Don Genova just raised all of our local food boats on Vancouver Island by writing this lovely book. He's a food journalist. He's on CBC Radio. He's a charming guy. He does really good stuff. And he wrote this wonderful book. And I don't know how many Comox Valley vendors are in there, but a number of them. So, and I was just thinking this on the way down. You know, we should actually have his book for sale at our market. And if you've got somebody in your community who's doing the same kind of thing or who's food blogging, even if they're not blogging about the market, how do you connect with them and work together to, you know, collectively raise the discussion about food? I'm going to talk to the market about and to Don as well about how we can, you know, selling his book gets people thinking about local food stuff. It gives him exposure.
As part of our Big Canada Day special event.
Cool.
So, and I want to do that every year.
So what if you made it about food? And people are reading their recipes for cauliflower soup or something like that. Mm-hmm. But focus it like for our farmers market. It has to be. It can't just. It has to be about food. So we've had at least kale lady. What's her name? Sharon Hanna come, you know, as part of so to integrate those kind of things. There are people who are telling stories already. There's a nice fit there. To go back to the surveys, in that first year of surveying, what we found was that we had a solid, you know, over a third of our customers were there to buy food. That was their principal reason. We had a small number of people who just came basically to enjoy the music and the atmosphere. They might buy a cup of coffee and a donut or a cinnamon bun. Then we had a huge number who really couldn't differentiate. They came for social, cultural, as well as food reasons. So that means that when we change this mix here, so we have to pay attention to that. We did a thing, or, you know, our indoor market can be cacophonous, like really noisy. It's also crowded. So, you know, Vicki decided, okay, we're going to deal with the crowding issue and the noise issue by we're just going to try not having any music. And music is hugely popular. I wish I could have actually, I didn't set it up for that, but I actually had Helen Austin, who's a local, she's somebody who makes a good living off of music. She wrote a little food song, which I love. It's very playful. But she's one of those people, and there's lots of them every week. You know, people love the music, so we pulled the plug on, or Vicki pulled the plug on music. Then the question was, is that going to have an impact? And, you know, just randomly ask people, and it was like, Some people, it was a big deal. Some people, it was great. Most people really could care less. But when we're adjusting the mix about, you know, the mix of, are you there for a good time, social, cultural time, or are you there to buy food? You know, those are things that we need to pay attention to, and that's partly why we're doing the surveys. Dogs are another big issue for the Comox Valley market, and some people think dogs should be there, some people think they shouldn't. I think we're probably going to be asking that question. Are they allowed? They are currently allowed. And so before any steps are taken around that, it would be good to ask some questions, because then it gives you, as the manager, for example, you can say, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but most people actually don't want to have dogs here. So that's why we made this decision. It's also good, surveys are great when you're dealing with your boards, because then you can go to your board who may be really attached to music at the market, or dogs at the market, or whatever it is, and you can say, yeah, you're really attached to that, but our customers aren't. And we're going to try it without those.
Data-driven information.
Pardon?
Data-driven information.
Yeah, exactly. Does anybody remember the the BC Association of Farmers Market selfie promotion from last year?
Yes.
It was awesome. One of the problems that I had with it was that people didn't get it, that they were actually supposed to be, that it was a picture at the market. So it's like, oh, a selfie thing, I can win stuff, so I take my picture of myself, but like, what's the context? So I wrote an article about it, and I used this picture because it was one of the few that I saw with the selfie person with some content from the market. So this is Kenzie, and this is Island Soda Works sign. It's like when we do this kind of stuff, we need to be really explicit. You need to include a vendor. You need to include some kind of market context. It isn't just about getting your face in front of your bloody phone again. You may actually need to do different contests for different demographics. You know, some people, there's a whole bunch of people they'll whip out a phone and do a selfie at the drop of a hat, and there's a bunch of people who are like, selfie, phone, you know. So and then it comes down to who are you trying to engage. Like for us, you know, people my age and older, we're important to the market, but we're not where the growth of our market is going to be. The growth of our market is going to be in that younger demographic, and again, particularly women, younger women, you know, 25 to 45, who have children. They're buying that's the research says they're buying the groceries. They're the ones who care about the quality of food. So how do we reach? Those are the people we want to engage. Those are the new people we want to engage. If we get a bunch of older people to buy a few I'm supposed to be eating less, right? So I'm not supposed to be a growth market. I'm not going to make you do this. A bunch of you have done this already. So this goes on the selfie thing. But it's such a simple tool. When you have opportunities like at this event here, if you meet somebody new, do a selfie with them. Find someone who carries a business card here? Okay, a few of you do. So when you do the selfie, exchange the business card. But also know that when you do the selfie, you're probably or potentially getting more play than you may with the business card. So I just encourage you to do that. You know, like when you're at the markets too. If you have a new vendor, you know, here's me and Joe, the carrot grower. You know, the new vendor, whatever. What didn't work or what hasn't worked yet? So some of you saw this. Going back to trying to be like a retail store. Going back to the idea that we should be advertising what's current. I experimented with a Pinterest local flyer. So every week for a little while, I would ask vendors to send me a picture of what was going to be at the market that Saturday, to give me their name and a price. And then I made up this simple Pinterest board every week. It was a fresh flyer. I included the musician of the week, and I included a map of how to find the market, because our market in the summertime is not downtown, it's somewhere else. It looked beautiful on screens. It was like a really mobile-friendly, lovely thing. And it has these little, if you put the price in a certain way, you can't see it in this, but some of them would actually have a little price banner across the side. I'm not sure if any of our Xena stuff. Oh yeah, here we go. You know, there's escapes. So it looked beautiful. Looked great on this. It was a really easy thing to text to people. You could text it to them on their phone, and they would get this little flyer. People's responses to it were positive on the consumer receiving side, and even the people when I showed it to vendors, they were like, "Wow, that's great." However, the market had no budget for this. It was an experiment that I tried, and what I was suggesting, I thought, okay, well, if you had to buy in for $5 a week or $25 for 2 months, something like that, would this fly? And it was too labor intensive and there wasn't enough buy-in. However, if somebody can try to configure, the format was really good and it was easy and it would lend itself easily to printing something. So that was that experiment. You guys are doing, who's doing something with Pinterest? Oh.
We were going to try it. But when I hear you saying, ask the vendor to send a picture of your food, forget it.
Yeah. So then so I was thinking that too. Okay, I've got 400 and something pictures from the market. We could have stock photos, but stock photos don't quite cut it for what we're talking about. We want...
You'll have $5 million worth of picture and just steal it from Pinterest. That came from.
Yeah, but see, but even then, you're not getting fresh images, right? So the idea was to actually have like real images from people, and then it was like, okay, I want real images, but I also want real images that actually look good. So we had people who were sending in images that were like, good product, good price, image sucks. I think Pinterest potentially is a really useful tool. I'm not sure how we would use it. So the monthly mini food fests are a work in progress. They are potential huge because they are seasonal, right? Every month there's like a theme food. And what I would like to see is to actually do training with vendors, like event-driven or season-driven training for vendors on how to use social media when the event is about your product. So if you're a tomato grower, okay, let's do like a little mini session on training all the tomato people how to use social media for those, for that month when it's tomato month. And then at the festival to have, the mini fest, to have some kind of a customer engagement thing that they win something for taking pictures of tomatoes and things that are happening there. So for me, I do a lot of work around events. Events are huge content opportunities. We're baby steps here, but I want to see something big happen. The other thing is that people don't know what to do with lots of the food, right? So it's like the perpetual kale season. What am I going to do with all this kale? You need to have ways for them to use it that excite them. So like, okay, there's a ton of squash at the market all of a sudden. Well, the first week it's fine because it's new again. But then it's like, okay, what am I going to do with squash? What am I going to do? So you got to give people ways to move that stuff through their menu planning. SMS text messaging is probably the future of this kind of stuff. You can find ways to there are examples. I saw one recently. Farmers who basically have got a list. They text that list. They do a group text and say, we're bringing 500 pounds of kale to the market. We're bringing fresh strawberries to the market. That everybody on the list gets a little text message. They show up at or like 10% show up at the market. You've got your dedicated. It's like having a mail list, but using text. We're not there, but I encourage individual farmers to start. If people, you have loyal customers, or farmers have loyal customers, ask them, would you like to get a text message on Saturday morning? And then you have to set up a little system, but you can do a group text to all those people saying, yep, garlic scapes are at the market, today or tomorrow morning. Using events, again, any kind of events that you do, great content opportunities. Cultivate if you've got one volunteer, great, but think about cultivating a volunteer cadre. Having like 3 or 4 people who, even if they only post a little bit, are willing to play along. I don't know how you give them incentives. Most people, just tell them that you appreciate them. I don't know. Yeah, and some of those people are going to be social savvy.
Right.
They're going to know how to use those tools. Not everybody, of course. Camera clubs are another thing, are another opportunity. But lots of the camera clubs actually aren't mobile savvy. They know about using a camera, but the distance between that and actually getting onto Facebook or whatever marketing platform is a distance. The other thing I want to see more of is, we have to get all the video profiles onto the market blog, so there's a bit of a lag there. Up until now, I've been posting them to YouTube and onto my food blog and now onto the Facebook page, but we need to actually have them on the blog. And we need to have more regular training for vendors, just like basically how to use your phone or your iPad. It's like that simple. Then I'm just going to do a recap and I'm just whip through this. The reason, where we were, where we are, just do it. Content, conversation. If you are going to auto-post, make sure you are paying attention to the places where you auto-post to so that you're not auto-posting to a black hole. Consistency. Just sounds like lots of you are consistently posting stuff. for those of you who aren't. Don't spend a lot of time, but 10, 15 minutes, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, put something up, see what happens. And make sure you have fun. Now there's those outsized patty pans. So don't forget to play. Make your farmers markets are like such a visual treasure trove. Like, play with it. Jack the colors up. I mean, these are pretty yellow anyway, but make it bounce and have like cute kids in there. I mean, I can take pictures of her because her mom said it's okay. I think you said it was okay. Have fun. I think that's it. Yeah, and then I just have a little. So we've gone way over time, and.